Ford has built some of the greatest pickup trucks the world has ever seen. Machines that defined generations, carried America's work, and became legends on the road. But not every Ford truck lived up to its promise. Some were bold experiments ahead of their time. Others looked incredible, but flopped in the showroom. And a few were killed before they had a chance to shine. These trucks were great, but they failed. From luxury disasters to forgotten icons and electric missteps, today we're uncovering 10 Ford pickups that had greatness in their DNA, but ended up as history's cautionary tales. You're about to see the Fords you forgot, the Fords you loved, and the Fords you never knew existed. Number 1. Ford Ranchero. The Ford Ranchero stands out as one of the most fascinating vehicles in Ford's long history with trucks. First introduced in 1957, it was Ford's answer to a very unique demand. People wanted the style and comfort of a car, but the practicality of a pickup. Rather than building a traditional truck, Ford took a passenger car platform and integrated a bed into the rear section, creating a coupe utility vehicle. This idea was inspired by Australian utes, which had been popular since the 1930s. The Ranchero's release beat Chevrolet's El Camino to market by 2 years, showing Ford's forward-thinking approach. Over its production run, the Ranchero went through multiple iterations, shifting between full-size, mid-size, and compact platforms. In its early years, the Ranchero was marketed to suburban families and small business owners who didn't need a heavy-duty truck but wanted something more versatile than a sedan. By the late 1960s, performance versions of the Ranchero, often equipped with V8 engines, also tapped into the muscle car era, giving buyers the option of both style and speed. Despite its innovation and unique place in American culture, the Ranchero struggled toward the end of the 1970s. Rising fuel costs, tighter safety and emissions regulations, and the shrinking popularity of two-door coupes in general hurt sales. Customers who wanted utility leaned toward traditional pickups like the F100 or F150, while those looking for comfort migrated to emerging SUVs such as the Ford Bronco and Chevrolet Blazer. The Ranchero became a vehicle without a clear audience. Ford officially discontinued the Ranchero after the 1979 model year. And while the concept never returned, its legacy remains strong. Collectors value the Ranchero for its quirky personality and for being an early attempt at blending car comfort with truck practicality. In hindsight, the Ranchero was ahead of its time. Today's crossover pickups like the Hyundai Santa Cruz and Ford Maverick echo its original philosophy. But in its era, it was simply too unusual to thrive in the long run. Number 2. Ford Courier. The Ford Courier is an interesting chapter in Ford's pickup history, mainly because it wasn't originally a Ford design at all. In the early 1970s, compact Japanese trucks from brands like Toyota and Datsun were rapidly gaining popularity in the United States. These smaller pickups offered excellent fuel efficiency, affordability, and maneuverability compared to the full-size American trucks of the era. Ford, realizing it lacked a product to compete in this emerging segment, partnered with Mazda to rebadge the B-Series pickup as the Ford Courier. Launched in 1972, the Courier was marketed as a small but capable pickup designed for urban buyers, young drivers, and tradesmen who didn't need the size and thirst of a full-size F100. It featured a 4-cylinder engine, lightweight body, and offered enough utility for light hauling. Styling tweaks and Ford badging helped it blend into the company's lineup, but underneath it was unmistakably Mazda. The Courier's compact size and efficiency made it particularly attractive during the 1973 oil crisis, when gas prices skyrocketed and buyers were desperate for economical vehicles. For a time, the Courier was a clever solution. It allowed Ford to compete in a growing segment without developing an entirely new vehicle from scratch. However, as the 1980s approached, the Courier began to lose ground. The stigma of being a rebadged import didn't sit well with some loyal Ford buyers, and the competition from Toyota and Nissan became stronger. Ford also recognized the need for a truck it could truly call its own. This led to the development of the Ford Ranger, introduced in 1983, which replaced the Courier in North America. The Courier was not a bad truck. In fact, it was practical, reliable, and fit the needs of many customers at the time. But in the long run, it was never more than a placeholder, a stopgap until Ford could launch its own compact pickup. As a result, the Courier faded away in the US. remembered today as a smart but temporary fix to a market problem Ford had to solve quickly. Number 3. Ford P100. The Ford P100 is one of those trucks that many American enthusiasts have never even heard of, yet it played an important role in Ford's global story. Introduced in the 1970s and sold in markets like South Africa and parts of Europe, the P100 was essentially a car-based pickup. Depending on the market and era, it was derived from Ford passenger cars like the Cortina and later the Sierra. This made it lighter, more fuel-efficient, and easier to drive than a traditional body-on-frame truck. The P100 appealed to small business owners, tradesmen, and urban drivers who wanted the cargo-carrying capability of a pickup without sacrificing ride comfort or economy. In many ways, it filled a similar role to the American Ranchero or the Australian Ute. Its design struck a balance between utility and style, and in countries where smaller, car-based vehicles dominated the roads, it made perfect sense. Buyers could haul tools, equipment, or goods while still enjoying the familiarity of a Ford sedan cabin. But despite its practicality, the P100 never became a breakout success. Its biggest weakness was its identity. It was neither a true rugged truck nor a stylish family car. Customers who needed serious towing or off-road performance turned to mid-size or full-size pickups, while those who wanted comfort leaned toward cars and, increasingly, SUVs. Manufacturing challenges also played a role. Because the P100 was essentially a niche vehicle, it never benefited from the kind of scale and investment Ford put into global bestsellers like the Ranger or Transit van. By the 1990s, Ford's focus shifted toward more globally unified platforms, and vehicles like the P100 no longer fit into its long-term strategy. It was discontinued quietly, leaving behind only a small but loyal fan base. Today, the P100 is a rare sight and something of a cult classic among collectors in Europe and South Africa. It represents a time when Ford was willing to experiment with unconventional solutions to meet regional demands, even if the result didn't always stand the test of time. Number 4. Ford Explorer Sport Trac. The Ford Explorer Sport Trac was one of Ford's most creative attempts to blend SUV comfort with pickup practicality, arriving in 2001. Essentially, it was a four-door Explorer SUV with a short composite pickup bed tacked on the back. Ford envisioned it as a do-it-all vehicle for families who wanted the comfort and passenger space of an SUV, but also needed occasional hauling ability. In an era when SUVs were becoming America's favorite vehicles, the idea seemed destined for success. The Sport Trac had a number of strengths. It was more comfortable than a traditional mid-sized truck, offered 4 real doors for passengers, and featured available V8 power. Its bed, though short, was innovative. Made of durable composite materials, it resisted dents and corrosion better than steel beds. Buyers appreciated the fact that it could carry sports equipment, gardening supplies, or small loads without the bulk of a full-size truck. It also appealed to lifestyle buyers who wanted a vehicle that felt adventurous and flexible. However, the Sport Trac never really found its footing. Traditional truck buyers dismissed it as not real enough given its SUV underpinnings and small bed. Meanwhile, SUV buyers often preferred the standard Explorer, which offered more cargo space inside and looked less awkward. Sales were steady but never spectacular. When gas prices spiked in the mid-2000s and the financial crisis hit, Ford prioritized core products and phased out vehicles that weren't delivering strong profits. The Sport Trac was discontinued after 2010, ending a nearly decade-long run. Yet, in hindsight, it feels like a vehicle ahead of its time. Today, models like the Honda Ridgeline and Ford's own Maverick have succeeded in carving out the very lifestyle truck niche the Sport Trac once aimed at. Its failure wasn't due to poor design, but rather timing, positioning, and an audience not yet ready to embrace such a hybrid concept. For collectors and fans, the Sport Trac remains an underrated gem, proof that Ford was willing to experiment, even if the market wasn't ready. Number 5. Ford SVT Lightning. The Ford SVT Lightning remains one of the most beloved and unusual trucks Ford ever built. Born from the company's special vehicle team, SVT, the Lightning was an effort to inject true muscle car performance into a pickup. The first generation debuted in 1993, based on the 9th generation F-150. It featured a tuned suspension, upgraded brakes, and a 5.8-liter V8 pushing out 240 horsepower, impressive for the time. It wasn't about towing or hauling, it was about speed, handling, and giving truck enthusiasts a taste of Mustang-style excitement in a pickup body. The Lightning attracted attention instantly. It appeared in magazines, gained a cult following, and even starred in shows like Walker Texas Ranger. Yet sales volumes were modest. The Lightning was a niche vehicle in a market where buyers prioritized utility. When Ford redesigned the F-150 in 1997, SVT relaunched the Lightning in 1999 with a supercharged 5.4-liter V8 producing 360 horsepower, later bumped to 380. This second generation was faster, meaner, and more refined, a true performance truck that could out-accelerate many sports cars of the era. Despite its greatness, the Lightning was always a tough sell commercially. It cost more than standard F-150s but offered less practicality, with lower payload and towing capacities due to its sport tuning. Buyers who wanted raw performance often chose muscle cars, while those who needed a truck preferred more capable trims. Ford eventually discontinued the Lightning after 2004, citing shifting priorities and the need to focus on mainstream, profitable F-150 variants. Today, the SVT Lightning is a legend among enthusiasts, often commanding high prices on the used market. It inspired future performance trucks, including the Raptor, and showed that Ford could push boundaries. But in its own time, the Lightning failed to achieve mainstream sales success. It was too far ahead of its audience, a brilliant but commercially fragile experiment that couldn't sustain itself in a world dominated by practical full-size trucks. Number 6. Lincoln Blackwood. Few vehicles symbolize the phrase "great but failed" better than the Lincoln Blackwood. Introduced in 2002, the Blackwood was Ford's attempt to merge the luxury of Lincoln sedans with the utility of a pickup. Based on the F-150 platform, it featured plush leather interiors, wood accents, high-end sound systems, and an exclusive exterior look with black paint and aluminum pinstripes. On paper, it was a luxury truck years ahead of the trend that would later see premium trims like the F-150 King Ranch, Platinum, and Limited flourish. The Blackwood's most radical feature was its bed. Instead of a typical open cargo box, it had a carpeted stainless steel-lined trunk with a power tonneau cover. While stylish, this design made it almost useless as a working truck. Owners couldn't haul dirt, lumber, or heavy tools without risking damage to the luxurious surfaces. The Blackwood was essentially an SUV with a decorative bed, and that alienated both traditional truck buyers and luxury car customers. Another major issue was its limited configuration. The Blackwood came only as a 4-door crew cab with rear-wheel drive. Buyers in snowy or rugged regions where trucks typically thrive had no 4x4 option. Combined with its nearly $52,000 price tag, an eye-watering sum in 2002, the Blackwood became one of Lincoln's biggest commercial failures. Fewer than 3,500 were sold before Ford pulled the plug after just 1 year in the US. Despite its flop, the Blackwood left a legacy. It showed Ford there was real potential for luxury pickups, just not in the extreme form Lincoln envisioned. Later F-150 luxury trims struck a better balance between comfort and practicality, achieving the sales success the Blackwood never did. Today, surviving Blackwoods are rare collector curiosities, prized for their oddity rather than utility. It remains a textbook example of a vehicle that looked daring and luxurious but failed because it misunderstood what truck buyers truly wanted. Number 7. Lincoln Mark LT. After the embarrassment of the Blackwood, Ford wasn't ready to give up on the idea of a Lincoln pickup. In 2006, the company introduced the Lincoln Mark LT, essentially a luxury version of the F-150. Unlike the Blackwood, it had a conventional bed, 4x4 availability, and broader trim options. On paper, it was a more sensible luxury truck, combining the prestige of the Lincoln badge with the proven practicality of the F-150 platform. The Mark LT initially sold reasonably well. It was more useful than the Blackwood, had strong engines, and came with upscale touches such as leather interiors, chrome accents, and luxury-focused amenities. However, it also faced a major problem. It wasn't distinct enough from the F-150. Buyers could purchase a fully loaded F-150 King Ranch or Lariat for less money and get nearly the same luxury feel without paying for the Lincoln badge. This overlap made the Mark LT feel redundant, and Ford dealers often struggled to justify the premium price. Competition also played a role. Cadillac had introduced the Escalade EXT, a luxury truck based on the Escalade SUV. While it too struggled, it had more brand cachet, and Cadillac's reputation for bold styling gave it an edge. The Mark LT, in contrast, looked too much like a rebadged F-150 with different grills and badges. Buyers who wanted luxury trucks simply gravitated toward Ford's high-end trims, leaving little reason to choose the Mark LT. By 2008, sales in the US were disappointing, and Ford discontinued the Mark LT in North America. Interestingly, the model found a stronger following in Mexico, where Lincoln had more brand prestige and the Mark LT remained in production until 2014. In retrospect, the Mark LT wasn't a terrible truck. It was comfortable, capable, and stylish. But it failed to establish a clear identity separate from the F-150, making it yet another great idea that couldn't succeed in Ford's lineup. Number 8. Ford Super Duty F-150 6.2-liter Heavy Half. In the early 2010s, Ford experimented with the idea of giving the F-150 a Super Duty light personality. Traditionally, customers who needed serious towing and hauling went straight to Ford's F-250 or F-350. But Ford identified a small group of buyers who wanted the size and comfort of an F-150 combined with the brute strength of a heavy-duty truck. To meet this demand, Ford introduced F-150 trims equipped with the 6.2-liter V8 normally reserved for Super Duty models. On paper, this seemed like a winner. The engine delivered strong torque, making the F-150 Heavy Half more capable for towing boats, campers, or work trailers than the standard lineup. It was marketed as the bridge between half-ton convenience and three-quarter-ton muscle. For customers who didn't want to step up into a bulkier, pricier Super Duty, the idea made sense. However, the Heavy Half failed to resonate. Most serious towing customers simply chose an F-250, which offered greater durability, payload, and resale value. Meanwhile, regular F-150 buyers were satisfied with the EcoBoost V6 or 5.0-liter V8 options, which provided plenty of capability at lower cost and better fuel economy. The 6.2-liter engine also hurt the truck's efficiency, and at a time when gas prices were climbing, this was a big drawback. Another problem was identity. The Heavy Half blurred the line between F-150 and Super Duty without clearly defining its purpose. Was it a luxury work truck, a towing specialist, or just an F-150 with an oversized engine? Buyers didn't quite know what to make of it, and dealers struggled to pitch it effectively. Ford quietly dropped the experiment, leaving the 6.2L to remain exclusive to the Super Duty lineup. Today, the Heavy Half is remembered as an interesting but unnecessary in-between that simply didn't have enough of an audience. Number 9. Ford F-150 Lightning. When Ford unveiled the all-electric F-150 Lightning in 2021, it was hailed as a groundbreaking moment. Here was the best-selling vehicle in America, the F-150 reinvented for the electric age. With up to 563 horsepower, instant torque, a massive front trunk, and features like powering a home during an outage, the Lightning wasn't just another EV. It was designed to prove that electric trucks could be practical, powerful, and desirable. Initial excitement was so strong that Ford racked up over 200,000 reservations within months of unveiling. The Lightning's engineering was impressive. It offered excellent acceleration, competitive range, and clever utility features. But the road hasn't been smooth. Production challenges, supply chain shortages, and high battery costs drove prices up, making it harder for the truck to compete in a market where affordability matters. Some early models also faced recalls and delays, hurting momentum. While Ford initially planned for huge production numbers, demand cooled faster than expected once the novelty wore off and buyers faced high interest rates and range concerns. Another issue is infrastructure. While the Lightning is capable, America's charging network still lags behind the convenience of gas stations, especially in rural areas where truck owners are common. Many traditional truck buyers remain skeptical of EVs, worried about towing range and charging times. As a result, sales have not lived up to Ford's ambitious forecasts, forcing the company to scale back production plans. The Lightning isn't a failure in the sense of the Lincoln Blackwood or Mark LT, but commercially, it hasn't yet become the runaway hit Ford hoped for. It remains a pioneering truck, the first real mass-market EV pickup from a major automaker, but its long-term fate depends on how quickly charging infrastructure improves and how affordable Ford can make it. Great in concept and engineering, the Lightning has stumbled in execution, reminding us that even the most innovative trucks face uphill battles when the market isn't fully ready. Number 10. Ford F-100. At the 2003 Detroit Auto Show, Ford unveiled something that had enthusiasts buzzing: the F-100 concept. This modern reinterpretation of Ford's classic mid-size truck looked sleek, muscular, and ready to bring back a historic nameplate. Positioned between the Ranger and F-150, the F-100 concept was meant to appeal to buyers who wanted a stylish, slightly smaller truck without sacrificing capability. It captured the spirit of the original F-100, which had been phased out decades earlier but still carried nostalgic weight among Ford fans. The concept featured bold lines, a wide stance, and a fresh design language that blended modern cues with classic truck toughness. It was exactly the kind of vehicle that could have competed with the growing mid-size market, which was heating up with strong entries from Toyota and Nissan. Many believed it was Ford's perfect opportunity to re-enter that segment in a way that celebrated its heritage. But despite the excitement, the F-100 never made it to production. Internally, Ford struggled with platform costs and overlap issues. The company was already planning new versions of the F-150 and had not yet decided how to position the Ranger in the North American market. Executives worried that launching an F-100 might cannibalize F-150 sales, which were the company's most profitable product. Instead of reviving the F-100, Ford chose to focus on its bread-and-butter trucks. In hindsight, this decision feels like a missed opportunity. By the mid-2010s, mid-size pickups made a huge comeback in the US, with the Chevy Colorado, Toyota Tacoma, and Nissan Frontier thriving. Ford eventually returned to the segment with the Ranger in 2019, but the stylish F-100 concept was long forgotten. It could have been a true icon, bridging Ford's heritage with modern buyer needs. Instead, it remains a reminder of how corporate caution can kill even the most promising truck ideas. And there you have it, 10 Ford pickup trucks that were great but failed. Some were misunderstood, some were mistimed, and some were just too different for their era. But one thing's for sure, Ford wasn't afraid to take risks, and sometimes those risks paved the way for the trucks we drive today. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these trucks do you think deserves a comeback? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into forgotten Ford history, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe for more truck stories, and hit the bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.